What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be discussing with you the pros and cons of living in Medellin, Colombia in 2026. If you don't know me, my name is Sean. I've lived here in Medellin, Colombia for a little over 2 years, going into my third year. I'm actually in the process of starting to buy an apartment and as well going to be starting a business here. So I've gone through a lot in the 2 years, going on 3 years that I've been here. But starting this video off, I want to first start off with cost of living, and can't talk about cost of living without rent. Now, in general, Medellin is going to be about 50% cheaper than Canada, Europe, and the United States. And in some parts of Colombia, it's even cheaper. So your biggest pro is going to be your rent. Rent is fairly affordable here. I live in a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, modest size apartment. It's not huge. It is a little bit on the smaller side, but I pay $1,200 a month for that. I don't live exactly in Poblado. I live in a city adjacent to it, but I don't pay that much for rent. And then for food bill or groceries, I probably spend around $120 to $140 a week, and that is for two people. My girlfriend and I, we don't really eat a lot, but that's about what I spend more or less. So in general here, you can have an amazing lifestyle without really having to downgrade too much, especially if you're on a tighter budget. But some of the other great pros of just living in Colombia as well, you have walkability. Everything is very walkable. I try not to really use my car if I don't need to, but I can walk pretty much everywhere. It's very healthy as well. It's a lot of greenery. It's very beautiful here in Colombia to be able to walk around, and you always just see greenery everywhere. So number two, we're going to go into the weather. This is definitely a big pro here. For the most part, the weather is good. They call it the city of eternal spring, generally because it is not much colder, at least in Medellin. Once you get outside of Medellin, it could be a little colder, but in Medellin, generally it averages anywhere from 68 in the night to about 75 to 80 in the day. Now, it does rain here almost every day, and that varies, but it never rains the entire day. And also, another big pro to living here in Medellin, there is no real natural disasters. You're not going to get tornadoes or hurricanes or anything like that. Now, there are earthquakes, but generally they're in Bogota or they're in other parts of Colombia, but never do you have any main ones hit here. You usually get aftershocks, but they're very small and not much really to worry about. And so another thing with this is that Ubers and taxis are very affordable. You don't actually need a car. It's not necessary to own a car here in Medellin. You can get around for the most part through all the cities like Salinete, Envigado, Itagüí. Even if you want to go all the way up to Bejo, you can actually take an Uber or a taxi, and it's not going to be too expensive. The only time I would say you do need a car is if you do plan on doing road trips and going to other parts of Colombia, like Jardín, or you want to go to some of the pueblos. In my opinion, I think it is a little better to have a car in those situations than trying to take a taxi or hire somebody for, hire a driver for the day. Now, this is just my opinion. So the next pro here is going to be healthy living. Generally, the food is very healthy, organic here, so it's not over processed and full of chemicals and stuff like it is in the States. That's something you don't have to worry about. There's always an abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables, so you have that as well. We have a bunch of farmers markets and things like that, so it's very easy to eat healthy here. Now, the other thing is gym culture. Gyms are very big here. Colombians usually are very into staying in shape. So you have the gym culture that's here. Gym membership is not very expensive. I think I pay for Smart Fit and I have the Black plan, which that allows you to go to any Smart Fit here in Latin America. And I maybe pay about $25 a month for that. And I'm paying for my gym membership and my girlfriend's membership. And total, I want to say this is maybe about $35 or something like that for the two of us. So nothing too crazy as far as gym memberships. I know some people, when they were going to like Equinox or something like that, they're paying like $300 a month, which is absolutely insane for a gym. But yeah, you have the gym culture here as well. So overall, you're just going to live a healthier lifestyle. So this next one can be a pro or a con, but Colombia, or in Medellin, it is a very matriarchal culture, which means that generally the women are the head of the household. The men may be the ones that earn the money, but the women here definitely are the heads of the household. The grandmas and the moms, like I said, that can be either a good thing or a bad thing. But you are going to get some strong family ties and bonds. There is one thing also too that I've noticed here is that everyone, not only teenagers and kids, but everyone does seem to be more respectful, which also means there's going to be a lot of family gatherings on holidays, which there are a ton of holidays here in Medellin, Colombia. That's another thing. I would also say this is a huge contrast from what I've experienced in the United States. Not everyone is as tight or as close with their families in the US. So, another thing here you have is a lot of national holidays and, let's say, small town travel. This can be another pro. And I'd slightly mentioned it, but there are, I want to say, like 18 holidays here, maybe a little bit more. There's probably like 23 or 24 in total if you include Barranquilla, because they have a couple more with the Carnival. But there's a lot of holidays here, and due to something called the Emiliani law, they passed this law back in the 80s. I want to say around like 84 or something like that, to encourage more travel within Colombia. So all of your holidays tend to fall on a Monday here, which means you have a lot of 4-day weekends. So this encourages a lot of small town travel, like small pueblos and going out to see family and different places. So that is something I also think is a huge pro here, is just the holidays, having so many holidays as well. The next pro here is going to be a strong expat community. Now, there are expat groups for everything you can think of. There are WhatsApp groups. So I highly recommend when you come here, definitely look into that as well. And those expat groups consist of everything from sports to hiking to entrepreneurs, everything. So your next pro here is going to be the cost of labor and talent. When you are starting a business here and you want to hire people, the cost of labor and in general what you're paying people, even though the minimum wage just went up here in January 1st, it still is a lot cheaper compared to what you would be paying in the United States for help, or talent, whatever it may be. So it's a huge thing here. And, cost of materials and stuff like that is just going to be normally cheaper than what you would pay in the United States. Also, I do want to add this, even though I don't have my own business, I have friends here that do. And from what I've seen, the employees tend to be almost very loyal. They almost become like family. And there is a very strong bond with the owner and the employees. It's very, I want to say, very tight knit. All right, so now we're going to get into the cons of living in Medellin, Colombia. So, starting off with the first one, is that is going to be driving. When you are a pedestrian here, you have to be extremely careful when crossing the streets. You want to make sure you look both ways. When I am walking, Colombia is the only country I've felt like I might potentially die every time I cross the street. Pedestrians do not have the right of way here, so you definitely want to make sure you're looking the right way. And especially late at night, you might catch a motorcycle or a car going the wrong way on the street. It's just part of the culture here. Also, it doesn't help that, most people can pay to get a driver's license here. They don't really have to take a test if they don't want to. And people kind of do whatever the fuck they want to do on the road. So that doesn't help as well. So driving is not the best here. You kind of do what you're going to do and people go around you essentially. So getting into the next con, and that is going to be unhealthy food temptations or unhealthy foods. If you've walked along the streets here, you will see that there are a lot of food carts and cheap foods like I can't even say the name of it, Banuelos or Palitas de Queso, different things like that. There's a lot of fried food here, or even if you're going out late night, there are a lot of unhealthy options when it comes to food, especially if you're out late night here in the La Sentencia area or in the Provenza area. So this can be a con of living here is a lot of temptations to eat bad food, and especially because eating out isn't as cheap. I would say this is also will go into this unhealthy eating. Not that you necessarily will spend money on unhealthy food, but Rappi or just spending money out to go eat can be a little dangerous here, a con, because it isn't as expensive as it is in the States. So you can end up spending a lot of money on just going to eat out or ordering out. So to me, this is one of the biggest cons when it comes to Colombia. And this is the flaking slash not considerate of your time culture. In general, Colombians do not like to say no. And this is something that's definitely very annoying if you are used to how people are in the United States of being very direct. So here in Colombia, you may ask someone, for example, especially when it comes to dating, you may ask a girl to go out. And this girl will tell you yes. You may plan it in advance. You may say, hey, on Friday, we're going to go out at this time. It actually requires you to over communicate more than what you may be used to, because you have to do this, or else you're going to get more women, or just in general more people that will be flaky, especially with women. You have to, almost double and triple text them just to confirm, like the night before, the day of, during the day, being like, hey, we're just want to confirm we're meeting tonight. Like, you have to do this. If you don't do this, it will lead to a lot of flaking. Trust me. And I've gone through this myself, and it was a slow learning process for me in the beginning. So, and as well, this also comes into flakiness and stuff with business as well. People don't answer phones, people don't call back. You're thinking, like, don't you want to make money? But this is just something that's part of the culture here. And I don't think it's just Medellin, I think it's Colombia in general. But the not being considerate of people's time and the flakiness is a huge, huge con of living here. And to be honest with you, you don't ever really get used to it. I've been here 2 years and I'm still not used to it. It can be annoying. So definitely a huge con is the flakiness. So the next thing is going to be a huge con here, and you can call this taking responsibility, communication, or accountability. And one of the things that sucks is in the Spanish language, accountability does not exist. So here in Colombia, it is not, especially Medellin, it's not a good idea to try to confront people and trying to hold them accountable for things, because essentially they will kind of shut down. They will say, you're being rude or mean. It's something you just kind of have to get used to and learn how to communicate here in Colombia, because it's just something that it's how it is that the people here don't like confrontation. And this kind of goes along with the thing of, not wanting to say no. So in general, whenever you try to tell either a guy or a girl, like, hey, you messed up, this was your fault, whatever, like I said, they tend to shut down and not be very responsive, or just in general not be able to take responsibility for their actions and what they've done. So I consider this a huge con of living here in Medellin. The next con of living here in Medellin is going to be the crime. Now, I say this very loosely because I live in a higher strato. To me, I don't really feel it as much, but it is something that you do always have to be aware of in the back of your mind. If it's from anything small like petty theft, getting pickpocketed, which happened to me before, If it's something like getting drugged and robbed, and if you're going on dates with girls, and that's mainly through Tinder or online dating apps, I want to make that specific. It's not, if you're out meeting everyday random girls who work at a restaurant or is a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer or something of that sense. So I definitely want to make that clear. Some things you have is like two guys pulling up on you and wanting to rob you on a moto. Generally, there is no crime here as far as like someone just shooting you for no reason or anything like that. In my opinion, I feel like it is a little bit, it's maybe not safer than the US, but safer in the sense of I don't ever have to worry about school shootings. I don't ever have to worry about a random car driving through a parade or something like that. Like things like that that happen in the United States. You don't get that here. You have a completely different type of crime. So the next con here is going to be easy access to vices or just things of that nature. Now, if you are someone who is not very disciplined, Medellin is not going to be the place for you. And a lot of people come here and get caught up in this stuff. I've seen quite a few, which is crazy to even think about, quite a few homeless Americans here who came here, who got hooked on drugs and things of that sort. But there are a lot of easy access to vices here. There's cheap prostitution. There is, cocaine is like $3 or $4 an ounce or something like that. I don't know the measurements, but I just know that it's a lot cheaper than what people pay in the United States. Weed is a lot cheaper. Tusi is something super cheap, like maybe $4 or $8 a gram, something of that sense. So drugs and alcohol and prostitution and all that stuff is very cheap. And then as well, when you start adding in partying and all that stuff, it can be a huge distraction and very easy to go down that spiral very quickly. So I would say that is a huge con if you are not a very disciplined person. So going into this next con is going to be the high single mother rate. I've talked about this in other videos. Here in Medellin, it is, or in Colombia in general, it's 80%. And you definitely, as a single male, you will feel that as you're dating, and you may see like, oh wow, a lot of these women are very beautiful, but the majority of them are going to have kids, some of them multiple kids. So it is something you have to deal with. And given that there is such a high single mother rate, a lot of the girls and guys here, they grow up without father figures or a positive male role model. So a lot of the males here tend to be very soft. They don't know how to take responsibility for things. They don't always tend to be the most responsible. Now, this isn't everybody, but I'm just saying it tends to be a common pattern. And then when it comes to the women, because they don't have a solid father figure or a male role model in their lives, they tend to make a lot of bad decisions, like getting a bunch of tattoos or just having a bunch of unprotected sex. The list goes on for all the reasons why single motherhood is just not a great thing. And also, as I said, this kind of leads into that whole matriarchal culture that they have here, but it is something that is a huge con of living here in Medellin. So next on this list, I have the language barrier. This is definitely a huge con for a lot of people. Only 5% of Colombians actually speak English. And even at that, they don't speak English very great. It's not going to be as good as like a Thailand or something like that. So you do have to, one, learn Spanish to have a successful relationship here or get anything done. Is it possible to be able to get things done here without being fluent in Spanish? Of course. It's definitely if you make the right connections. I didn't speak fluent Spanish, and I still don't. When I went through the whole process of buying my car, the process did help me learn a lot of new Spanish because I was hearing a lot of new words and in a new situation for the first time. Ultimately, it would have been really, really hard to go through that if I didn't have the connections I had to help me translate and go through stuff. So it's not impossible, but it is definitely a huge con because not very many people are going to speak English. So for me, overall, the pros outweigh the cons, and I want to know, what has been your experience? Did I miss any cons? And do you plan on coming or moving to Medellin? That's it for this video. Appreciate you guys watching. And until the next one, remember to travel and to travel safe.